In this video, I will delve into Paul's deliberate incorporation of Greek philosophy into his epistles. It is evident that Paul, within the context of his time, actively integrated elements of Greek philosophical thought into his teachings. The examination of this aspect is crucial, and dismissing the provided evidence as mere coincidence would be an oversight. Paul's engagement with Greek philosophy is notable in the way he weaves philosophical concepts into his writings. The deliberate nature of this integration suggests a purposeful effort to connect with the audience of his time, who were familiar with and influenced by Greek philosophical ideas. I will highlight specific instances or passages where Paul's language and concepts align with Greek philosophical principles. This intentional assimilation could have served various purposes, such as making his teachings more accessible or appealing to those versed in Greek philosophy. The impact of Greek philosophy on Paul's teachings extends beyond the historical context, influencing the trajectory of modern Christianity. By incorporating Greek philosophical ideas, Paul intentionally contributed to shaping certain aspects of Christian theology. The development of Christian theology in the early centuries, marked by councils and debates, often drew on the language and philosophical ideas inherited from the Greco-Roman world. Theological terms and doctrines were articulated using the philosophical vocabulary available at the time. Paul's engagement with Greek philosophy directly laid the groundwork for the theological synthesis that characterized the early development of Christian doctrine. The fusion of Judeo-Christian and Hellenistic ideas laid the foundation for a Christianity that could engage with and appeal to a wider intellectual audience. No serious historian or theologian can afford to disregard the broken shards, stripped paint, and dents in Christianity resulting from its collision with Greek philosophy in the 1st century. The collision birthed a religious syncretism of beliefs that paved the way for Christianity. The acceptance also brought confusion that resulted in schisms in Christianity. Religious syncretism is the combining of different beliefs to create an underlying unity and allow for an inclusive approach to other faiths. Epicureanism, Stoicism, and particularly Platonism were readily incorporated into Christian ethics and theology. The early history of Christianity, from the 1st century to the 4th century, reveals theological and doctrinal divisions within the Christian community. The seeds of these divisions can be traced through the writings of the early Church Fathers. Pagan influences from Greek philosophy and early Christianity shaped modern Christianity versus a pure Nazarene faith in the Messiah as mentioned by the early Church Fathers. Hopefully, in the future, I will make a video about this split within the early Jesus movement. One part was faithful to the teachings of the Messiah and his Hebraic roots, while the other was heavily influenced by Greek philosophy throughout Paul at the beginning. That's why Christianity is more culturally ancient Greek than it is Judaic. Titus 1 verse 12. The Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, slow bellies. In writing to Titus, Paul quotes a description of the Cretans taken from Epimenides. Paul calls Epimenides one of themselves, a prophet of their own. Acts 17:25, Paul said, "Neither is God served by men's hands, as though he needed anything, seeing he himself giveth to all life, and breath, and all things." Seneca said this in this form, "God wants not ministers." How so? He himself ministereth to the human race. Romans 2:14, are a law unto themselves. Aristotle, against such, there is no law, for they themselves are a law. 1 Corinthians 9 verse 24, know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize? Plato, but such as are true racers, arriving at the end, both receive the prizes and are crowned. Romans 7 verses 22 to 23, but I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members. Paul took this idea from Plato. There is a victory and defeat, the first and best of victories, the lowest and worst of defeats, which each man gains or sustains at the hands not of another, but of himself. This shows that there is a war against ourselves going on in every individual of us. Philip 3:19, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, and whose glory is in their shame, who mind earthly things. Once more, Paul uses ideas from Plato from the work Republic, gives a vivid description of those gluttonous and intemperate souls whose belly was their god. Romans 8 verse 5 and Galatians 6 verse 8. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh. Paul got this idea from Plato. To be carnally minded was death. Philippians 1 verse 21. For to me, to live is Christ and to die is gain. Once more, Paul got this idea from Plato. Now if death is like this, I say that to die is gain. 2 Timothy 4 verse 6. I am now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. To be with Christ, which is far better. Paul loved Plato, he could not get enough of him. Once again, Plato, the hour of departure has arrived, and we go our ways, I to die and you to live. Which is better God only knows. 1 Corinthians 8 verse 2. And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing yet as he ought to know. Paul got this idea not from the Bible but from Socrates' work, Apology, 21d. For my part, as I went away, I reasoned with regard to myself, I am wiser than this human being. For probably neither of us knows anything noble and good, but he supposes he knows something when he does not know, while I, just as I do not know, do not even suppose that I do. I am likely to be a little bit wiser than he in this very thing, that whatever I do not know, I do not even suppose I know. Romans 12 verse 4, For as we have many members in one body, and all members have not the same office. Socrates says, to begin with, our several natures are not all alike but different. One man is naturally fitted for one task, and another for another. Ephesians 1 verses 22 to 23. And hath put all things under his feet, and gave him to be the head over all things to the church, which is his body, the fullness of him that filleth all in all. This idea is from Plato. First, then, the gods, imitating the spherical shape of the universe, enclosed the two divine courses in a spherical body, that namely which we now term the head, being the most divine part of us and the Lord of all that is in us. To this the gods, when they put together the body, gave all the other members to be servants. This is the pattern on which Paul based his thought and teachings on Greek philosophy. This pattern can be observed in all of Paul's writings. There are a lot of scholars who can't overlook how Paul inserted Greek philosophy into his teachings. There is a lot of academic theological work that proves this to be the case. Some individuals and scholars believe that the convergence of Hellenistic thought with certain religious teachings was a result of the cultural and historical context in which these ideas were disseminated. During the period when Christianity was spreading, especially in areas influenced by Greek culture, there was an inevitable interaction between Greek philosophical concepts and Christian theology. This interaction led to various interpretations and adaptations of religious beliefs to make them comprehensible to audiences familiar with Greek thought. Paul is often described as a Hellenistic Jew due to his background and education. He was born in Tarsus, a city influenced by Greek culture, and was familiar with Greek philosophy and language. His writings in the New Testament reflect this Hellenistic influence, as he often employs Greek philosophical concepts and language to convey his teachings. The interaction between Hellenistic Judaism and broader Greek culture during this period had a significant impact on the development of early Christianity. Paul's role as a Hellenistic Jew and his efforts to spread Christianity among both Jews and Gentiles further demonstrate the intricate relationship between Greek culture and religious beliefs during that time. The term Hellenistic Jew refers to Jews who adopted Greek culture and language during the Hellenistic period, which began after the conquests of Alexander the Great. This period introduced Greek customs, language, and ideas to various regions, including Judea. The books of Maccabees provide historical accounts of the Maccabean revolt against the Seleucid Empire, which sought to impose Hellenistic culture and religion upon the Jewish population. The revolt, led by the Maccabees, was a resistance against the Hellenization efforts and aimed to preserve Jewish traditions, laws, and practices. As always, I'll end my video with the famous words of Paul in 2 Corinthians 12 verse 16, I caught you by trickery. Has Paul caught you by trickery?